Go ahead and start the recording. Welcome everybody. This is the CHAOSS community call, weekly community call. So open to things that people want to bring up. I always have an agenda of things that I don't mind talking about. And so for those of you that are also kind of new to the call or returning to the call from, looking at you, John. It's good to see you again. I'd just like to introduce Elizabeth Barron. She's the new CHAOSS community manager. So she's going to be, she just joined us last week. So this is week number 2. Yep. So it's been a grand total of 7 days, not including the weekends. So Elizabeth and I talked, we're going to try to jointly run this meeting. I haven't talked to her about the agenda at all. So it's, I figured that would have been a nice thing to do, but I just didn't do it.
It's jazz, you know.
Yeah, it's total improv. So go ahead and add yourself to the meeting minutes, please, and tell us how you're doing today, or tell us about something that we can't see that's, you know, in your world there, at your house or in your office. All right, so with respect to the agenda, there was somebody added a note, I'm looking at Georg, about making a CHAOSS statement about privacy and ethics around metrics and analytics. Was that you, Georg, or is that a carryover from some other thing that I missed?
I did add it, and yes, it is a carryover. So okay. 2 points for you. We had this conversation in one of the working groups that we should have some kind of recommendation or guidelines from CHAOSS, because when we start analyzing communities, we get into the area of usernames and email address and personally identifiable information and ethics and GDPR and all that. And this has been something we've been asked for many times in the past, that maybe with the metrics release, we should also have a disclaimer or some pointers or something to help people understand the ethics and legal concerns around analyzing open source communities. And while we're not lawyers, I don't think we can give final recommendations. I do think we can add something to our metrics release.
All right, somebody say something out loud and I'll type it down.
I think
start from there.
I think taking a public position on the ethics and use of personally identifiable information is appropriate. I think our metrics, by their definition, do not compel people to use PII in distribution of the metrics. I think tools hold the potential to do that. And it's only when somebody uses a tool for public-facing output that includes PII where it becomes an issue. And I think we should just take the position that we are aligned with GDPR, but you know, it's use. This risk occurs in use, not in definition, and that's, I think, a really critical distinction.
Okay. So Garrick's trying to jot down, I think, what is in his mind and what you had said, Sean, in terms of a sentence.
Yeah, always sentence. I don't speak in paragraphs.
Just so we can like put it with the release, I like the idea of the use between use and definition is a nice distinction. I thought that was well said.
I think if I'm recalling, if I was a part of that conversation, which I think I was, I think part of the concern was that just by a project using the metrics, we were afraid that maybe some people would be concerned about that and not want to participate in the community. So it would actually have like the opposite effect of helping a project be healthy if there was a potential for that information to be abused or made someone feel unsafe as a participant. So I think that's kind of where I think was part of the reason we wanted to make it publicly, like, here's our statement on this. So just quell that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't spoken up for so long. I haven't been here in a while, but this is really interesting. So I'm struggling with this challenge in another platform I'm working on that is not based in open source metrics. Is it within at all kind of CHAOSS's, I guess, scope to ask managers who are looking at this kind of data to only use it in certain ways? I know there's nothing you could force them to do, but I'll give you an example. Our concern right now is the data that our platform would throw off is mainly for management to get a good measure of how engaged their teams are. And, you know, look, there's open source program managers using CHAOSS too, right? That data can be used to, in some sense, punish people. I don't know if it's worth exploring any kind of, you know, statements that we want open source program managers or open source project managers to kind of adhere to a set of ethics about how they use the data. I don't know. That's a big old sticky wicket.
I think we could say that if you're going to state that these are CHAOSS metrics, that there's a code of conduct or a code of ethics that need to be followed. You know, anybody can measure some of this stuff, but if you want to say that these are CHAOSS metrics, you have to follow our ethical standards.
So if you take a look at the minutes, Georg's been jotting down a few points. I'm listening to you talk, Sean, and listening to you talk, John, and also Elizabeth. I think he's doing a really good job capturing what we're talking about here. I mean, the statement could be this entirety, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think to your point, Sean, about kind of couching it in the code of conduct terms is probably useful in that it doesn't imply obligation to anybody who's using this stuff, right? And it doesn't put us on the hook either.
Well,
I think that might be a good framework.
Using you can't say it's a CHAOSS metric if you don't abide by it. I mean, I think saying it's a CHAOSS metric holds some weight because it represents consistency, and you know, not letting people state that it's a CHAOSS metric seems like something we could take away. Like John, if is that what are you agreeing with that, or did I say something else you're agreeing with?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm agreeing with the framework of it as as kind of a guideline, right? Not. I don't know if I don't know enough about the use of the tool in other companies at this point to make an informed opinion of, you know, would it be a punishment for somebody to say it's not a CHAOSS metric anymore? I don't know if anybody would care, honestly, but I'm not close enough to the implementers of this to know that.
Yeah.
That brings up the idea of CHAOSS conformance badging, but that might be a subject for later times.
Matt Snell with the badges.
I do have something to ask regarding GDPR conformance and software and implementation side. How do we handle opting out, which is a requirement?
Opting out of what?
Opting out of your information, PII, things like that being used in metrics measurement. So as far as like, we have some implementations that use email addresses and the GitHub API. And our general idea coming from like the past is that we've had, if it's available publicly already, then we can use it publicly. There's some gray area that comes in there, but opting out is an important part of that too. And I think right now our system, as I understand it, is that you have to go into the database and pull it out. So do we want to have a better system for that in the future?
I mean,
I think that, sorry, Sean.
I was just gonna say right now, GDPR does have an explicit exemption for Git repositories.
So I think
because it's a hard problem technically.
Exactly. It's a technical problem. So I think it's something that the software projects need to tackle. I don't think we can do it at the metric definition level.
No.
And I know in Grimoire Lab, Liturgia has been putting in procedures to handle GDPR requests. And I assume Augur is doing similar things.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, for us, it's all IDs. So yes, the email can exist somewhere, but if you just want to see the IDs, you can. And most of the metrics are actually aggregations, not individual.
I mean, I hate to ask this question, but is it worth ever like getting third-party review of the software to make sure that it's GDPR compliant? I'm thinking of the Linux Foundation. They seem to have people who could help answer those kind of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I think the organizations that can afford to do third-party auditing have more cash than we do.
Well, yeah, I meant like as a project of the LF, if they have
Right.
if they have their own inherent desire to understand their projects as being GDPR compliant,
Mm-hmm.
that might be something that they
right.
provide.
Yeah, but if you'll allow me to say something here.
No, of course.
Regarding the tools and the metrics, first, the metrics by definition, I would say they are GDPR compliant, because if we have some measure like we are telling things about aggregating data, it's not about individuals again. And as Sean has smartly said, we are talking about IDs, not about individuals again. And the other thing about the tooling is the tooling by definition, again, could be or not GDPR compliant. I would say that it matters in the sense of how the people is using the tool for. And again, since it's an open source tool, people can use them for whatever thing they want. So that's why I was suggesting to take a look at this idea of the technologies OAuth, that you are using the tool for not hurting other people. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the tooling can provide the measures to be GDPR compliant. So it's not a matter of the tooling itself, it's how you are using the tool for that. I mean, first thing is you can gather information from Git and you can get the email of the people. If you go to GitHub, they have this legal statement that you are not allowed to get email from here and start making calls to these people to give them jobs.
Right.
Because this is spamming. So you are not allowed to do that. Then GitHub can do it by themselves. But I mean, if you are getting GitHub data, you cannot do it, because that's at some point illegal. So again, it's like Grimoire Lab, and I know Augur also has this means to allow people that this is GDPR compliant. So you can use it in a GDPR compliant way.
Yeah. And the principal purpose of GDPR and the California law and the other ones that are coming is to prevent people from getting spammed with advertising. And I think one of the reasons Git and GitHub and other platforms like it have been sort of exempted from these rules is because nobody is sending us advertising in a command line. And if the terms of service prevent you from using the emails to spam people, then GitHub considers themselves covered. I mean, the intent is not to prevent open source software from working.
Just to give you more context about this, for example,
Yeah, that's a really good example of the context. That's important.
In the sense of we are a company providing the service. Basically, we are committed as a company to say to the people, this is the data process agreement we need to sign with the customer. But if you are someone using the tool, is how you use the tool, the thing that could be an issue. But it's not a matter of the tool itself, it's how you use the tool for. Because the tool has the means and the measures to prevent that.
So I have a quick question. So Manrique, the Hippocratic Oath for technologists that you shared, how is that? Well, I like it. I mean, to do no harm. So, but what is the, how is it deployed? So is it something that, like, the CHAOSS project says we subscribe to the Hippocratic Oath, or is it something that we say, as the CHAOSS project, we encourage you as users of the software to consider the Hippocratic Oath, right?
I will suggest the second approach, and to tell you a little bit the story. When all this thing about the ethics and software was discussed, starting to be discussed, I discovered this Hippocratic technology's oath, and I discovered it's a smart way of being accountable, in the sense of I am saying, I as Manrique or us as a community, we are saying that I am using or building this software under this oath. So if you find me using this for not good reasons, you can blame me for that. So you are allowed by yourself to do the same thing with the software. So basically I am adding this to my repositories, my own personal repositories as MD file, like, okay, this is my oath about this software. I'm not using this for hurting people. So basically, if you find me hurting people, you can blame me. You can open an issue. Well, if you find an issue or a vulnerability in my code, because, sorry, it's my fault, so you can blame me for that, and I will work on fix it. And it's my approach of open source way to work on this is basically, I am accountable for doing that. I'm not limiting you to use this for the same thing, but if you are cloning my repository, you are cloning my oath. So basically, you can be blamed for using that for bad reasons too.
Okay, this is good.
But that's my approach. So
yeah.
When we just start discussing, I remember this, so I linked that I pasted that into the chat.
So I'm gonna move on to the next item. This is super helpful, and I think we've captured a lot of what is discussed here. From what I understand, Georg, your hope is to include something in alignment with the next metrics release. And so that gives us time to continue to kind of sort this out, because we have 6 weeks until that occurs. So I think this is a great starting point, kind of moving it out of ephemeral discussion down into paper. So thank you, Elizabeth, and everybody who participated. That was very helpful. Okay. As far as the metrics release is going, because that is coming up here relatively shortly, could I ask the reps from the working groups? Maybe I'll start with Sean and Risk. Do you have any sense of how many metrics are going to be part of the next release?
I think we're pretty solid, around 4.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's going to go up. I don't think it's going to go down. I think we've got 4 that are reasonably well developed.
Okay, cool. Sean, do you have any sense from Gabe? I don't think Gabe's on right now. With respect to evolution, or Carter, yeah.
Carter, let me take a pass and take a look real quick. I've been running those meetings because Carter's started having meetings for his internship. So
okay,
let me just track that down real quick. Give me a second.
Okay, I can tell folks that the value working group is likely going to be 0. It's going to be a rearrangement of the focus areas. So Georg, do you have a sense of D&I or common? I know that you had run those the last 2 weeks, or the last week anyway.
In diversity and inclusion, I believe we have a metric by Emma Irvin on leadership diversity. We have the documentation utility that we've worked on diligently. We have the issue tracker inclusivity. I feel like there's one more that I don't see right now, but
I think actually what you had just said out loud kind of coincides with what I had in my brain.
Yeah. So at least those 3. And then in common, we have the time to close that already went through the
continuous
metric contribution, CMC. And then we have contributor location that we worked on. I think we want to get this out for the release here as well.
Okay.
And then we have two more that we have not looked at yet, but that are promised. One is language distribution, and the other is forks.
Okay. Is forks?
Forks, yes.
Okay.
So there's, let me just pipe up on forks. I'd like to propose, as I proposed in other working groups, that forks move into the common working group. Because there's three. Oh, is that what he was saying?
Yep.
Okay, yes. So, and I was going to answer evolution 2, possibly 3, with the assumption that forks is moving to common.
Okay. So the upwards of 7, 11, 14 at an upper, and 5, 11. So 11 to 14. All right. So I guess maybe one of the first things is thank you for everybody for pushing those forward. I think that's really awesome. We won't talk about it here, but I want to put something out that there is just kind of a larger concern that as we continue to develop metrics, the metric lists become pretty long, and we may have at some point 100 metrics, 150 metrics, and the CHAOSS.Community.June.16.2020 page becomes a wall of words that is impossible to navigate from a human perspective. So we're going to have to think about ways that we can still retain that. Those definitions are important, of course, but ways to help people kind of filter through the many metrics. So there have been some ideas that have been floated around. They're really great ideas. So kind of more to come on that.
I would like to point out for the release that for those 14 metrics that the working groups are wanting to release, you have about 2 weeks to do it if you want it as part of the regular release, because you have to go through the 30-day comment period. So they need to be out the door by
June 24th.
30th or...
Is it June 24th or June 30th? I think
August 1st is the regular release, so that's the date we have set.
Okay. I don't know why I'm thinking of June 24th. Did I lose everybody?
June 24th was the deadline for getting the metrics finished.
In the working groups. Right. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, so less than 2 weeks.
Yep. Like a week.
10 days. Let's say 10 days. 8 days, actually, if you want to be.
We'll say we can still stick with 10.
Call it precision. Precision metrics.
I think, Sean, did you add the GitLab migration? Or did somebody else add that? Because
I did not. I did not add that, but I think we did want to discuss it. I see we do have some representatives from Bitergia here, which we didn't last time, or at least Manrique is here. There's more than Georg.
Sante is here as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of people. I can't read all the names.
Yeah, last time we had talked about the migration, and Sean had shared that for Augur, it would be a migration effort in the hundreds of hours. And so there was a tendency to not move because the migration cost for Augur is so high, but we didn't have anyone from Grimoire Lab, and the idea to move to GitLab came from the Grimoire Lab project. And so we didn't want to make a decision and have a conversation. So Santi or Manrique, if you have something you want to contribute.
So my problem is I don't know how we should move forward if Augur says that they are not able to they won't be able to move, because I think hundreds of hours to move to another platform is unacceptable, so it doesn't make sense. But I don't know if
to clarify, when you say it doesn't make sense, you think the number is high?
no, I mean that if you think that it's 100 hours or more than hundreds of hours, there's no point to move to other place, unless you get some benefit from that. And I don't know how you. I think the good part of GitLab, well, let me explain. You're saying that you will need that amount of hours because you will need to migrate all the work that you did in Travis, I think.
Yeah, part of it's integration work with Travis for the builds from branch to branch, and we have a process that involves 3 branches. Part of it is the Travis, just getting all the Travis CI stuff to work at all. Part of it is we generate our docs automatically from, so basically there's a whole bunch of automation that Carter and Gabe have taken the time to put in, with the idea that then these things would be sort of automatic and not depend on them after they leave.
Yeah.
Because they're going to graduate. It's a poor part of the business model.
Yeah. Have you considered the features of GitLab? Say CI?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them are appealing. I think our challenge is having the funds to. Carter and Gabe graduate in December, and they don't have a lot of time this summer because they're working other internships. So I would basically be devoting most of the rest of the time they have on the project to moving to GitLab. And from a Augur product perspective or project perspective, that's a painful choice to make.
Yeah.
Because we would lose essentially our leadership for developing new features.
Yeah, makes sense.
And hardening things. So that's the tricky part. That's where, and the costliness and the timing, I think, are tricky.
Yeah, so I was thinking if to move to GitLab will improve your experience with CI, because all those features that GitLab has. So I don't know, because in Travis there's no pipeline, or at least you pay, and
right.
In GitLab we can have that, because we will be a gold. We will be in the gold tier, so we will have all these features just for free. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, we aren't paying for anything on GitLab right now. I don't know if others pay for it, but we're small enough that we don't.
Well, I don't know. I
mean, clearly I think the reason we wanted to have the discussion with y'all here is because, quite clearly there's a benefit for your project, for Grimoire Lab, and I guess the question is the cost of it to Augur, and I think the other item that came up was the fact that we'd be the only Linux Foundation project not on GitHub, which seems weird.
I'll just add, from a working group perspective, I don't know that there's like a tremendous amount of concern, but I also don't think any of the working groups are having difficulty working in GitHub. So the question is on making that move. We're working just fine at the moment, and making the move does have a transaction cost in doing that move, no matter how small it is. that it's not really solving a problem that any of us have in the metrics working groups, because I don't really think we have a problem right now with our workflow.
Okay, so, well, I've been using GitHub for many years, so I can still use it. So our proposal mainly was for, well, to take advantage of all these features with continuous integration, and also with the way we will get all the issues, not like gathering in one place only. So we can think about to find a way to get that in GitHub. So we can postpone this discussion to, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something like that. And in the meantime, we will check how to do this in GitHub.
If I remember, yeah, it does. So thank you.
Okay.
So I don't know if, are you saying with postponing this discussion to move to GitLab postponement, or should we just close the GitLab discussion and then talk about solutions staying within GitHub?
Yeah, let's close the idea of moving to GitLab, and if I'm not happy with, or the people from Grimoire Lab we're not happy with the things that we have in GitHub, or how to accomplish what we want, we can open the discussion again and then decide.
Sounds fair.
Yeah, I think the discussion should always be available to be open.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's
never
like,
close the door.
No, things get reintroduced all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Santi.
Thanks to you.
Okay, so looking at the agenda, I was gonna, let's see, we're at 35, so we have about 15 minutes. Maybe I'll go through a few things. I'm gonna skip the software updates and user stories for a second. Well, maybe let me just, on the user stories. So in the Grimoire Lab call, they've had folks on who have been using the Grimoire Lab tools. What would anybody think about inviting people to the community call that would talk about metrics or metrics use or metrics deployment? It wouldn't be for the entire call, but even just for 15 minutes. I mean, we kind of do this in the podcast a little bit, but spending any time, or do you really want to stick with using this time to get through more functional issues like we do right now? People have thoughts on that.
If we did, we'd have to cut way down on the amount of things that we cover normally.
We would.
Yeah, because we have a lot of things already.
We do.
Too many already, but.
So where would the difference be between having someone talk here and someone talking on the podcast about their use cases?
None. Just, I don't know that everybody here listens to the podcasts. Just because it's a community call, that was all. But if we want to just stick with it on the podcast, maybe we even do the same thing with Grimoire Lab. Instead of inviting people to that call, we just invite them to the podcasts. That we centralize those discussions all on the podcasts.
I see no problem with a lightning talk, something small.
Matt, can I ask a quick question? So are these people that are currently using the metrics in some way? And so it's almost like we're getting their feedback on what they find difficult to use. And so I think on the podcast, it seems more general community health discussions. So maybe this is more of like a focus group, or I don't know what the right word is, but maybe it would merit a separate meeting where we're basically watching someone use the product, or use the metrics, use the reports, or just getting that like one-on-one feedback from them of what their stumbling blocks are and where they're finding issues in the stuff that we're providing. Is that what you mean?
That'd be great. I mean, I was even thinking like from a like a Bitergia or Grimoire Lab perspective, or from even just having folks from Augur talk, like here's who we've been talking to and here are the complex issues that we've been thinking about, you know, and here's the use of those kind of things.
Georg, is that something that would fit in with the ecosystem user group?
No.
No, not really.
Sorry, everything completely froze and now I'm back. Sorry.
I like the idea of having it working conversations. I do like that idea.
Okay.
And getting feedback and being able to ask and show and tell, because yes, those are things the podcast cannot provide.
Okay.
And I do think that is valuable for hardening our metrics and proofing them.
Well, let me just throw it out there. We can continue this discussion, but just something to think about. Let's see. Oh, very, very briefly, some of us have been meeting. I think last time we mentioned website updates. We're also working to improve the workflow around getting the CHAOSS Weekly newsletter out so that we can just basically do it via WordPress. So shouldn't see a big change from a receipt perspective of it, but we're working on how to improve that. Google Summer of Code and Outreachy. For those of you that are doing the mentoring, please continue to encourage the students to blog and share their experiences to the list. I think this is kind of a requirement, isn't it?
It's a hard requirement for the Google Summer of Code. They have to blog their experience.
Yeah, and so keep having them, just encourage them to post it to the list is great. And then just so folks know, for Google Summer of Code and Outreachy students, we did finally secure one-time tickets to attend Open Source Summit North America. So if you're a Google Summer of Code or Outreachy student on this call, I think everybody on this call has reached out to me and I've given you the ticket. So that's good, and reach out to your mentees as well. Community report. I think, are we meeting this week? I kind of forget.
I don't have a meeting that I see on my calendar, but that doesn't mean I have processed my calendar correctly.
Next week. So we continue to meet with the Linux Foundation. I think what has to happen is, Enrique, remember you were on the call with us when we were talking about like the metrics to show, and this even came up, I think, in the Grimoire Lab call today, and it came up in the RISC call. I think at some point we need to kind of sit down and think about what would be those 8 to 10 metrics that we would want to put on a community report, that single page document, and how we would go about producing those metrics in an efficient way to put on a.
And I think there was some, I can't remember if Enrique was in the conversation, where we want to produce metrics that people can't get straight off of GitHub. And I think some of the metrics that were on there were things we can get straight off with GitHub. You know, we want to show hey, we can do even more than that, right?
Yeah, right.
Enrique had some nice talks, and it was Alberto too today, just about kind of these nice looks potentially around people and around the types of contributions that people are making. So it's just some really nice insight. And then Sean in the RISC call today had some nice insight around total closed PRs and time to first response on those PRs, just kind of being able to look under the hood at those PRs. So my suggestion would be, we'll talk with the folks at the Linux Foundation just to kind of see where this is all at in terms of getting the form built that can do a request for a community report, how that's going to be integrated with Salesforce at the Linux Foundation. and then probably following that meeting, we could talk with Augur and Grimoire Lab folks as to what that limited set of metrics can be on that report.
Exactly. Right.
So is everybody all right? Yeah.
I was just going to say, we do have a repo now for that.
That's
so
right.
I don't know if people want to start dropping in ideas and issues yet, or if that's premature. I don't know. But
Elizabeth's first victory.
Right.
Of many.
Go me. Yeah, so that's there. It's health-reports if you're looking for it.
I forgot the dash in the minutes here. I'll drop some of these in here. Actually, I will. I'll put those in there based on what I heard today in Grimoire Lab, trying to capture what Manrique and Alberto were talking about, and then also what Sean was talking about. This came across, the next thing kind of came across my radar. Has anybody seen this? Dubstep.Cloud. It looks like a new attempt to figure out dependencies between repositories.
Is that the address, Dubstep.Cloud?
Dubstep.Cloud. It's in the minutes.
Okay.
And hi, Alyssa here on the phone from Open Source Collective.
You're the one that showed this to me.
Yeah. So I have seen it, and it's a project from one of the developers at Indeed, and we've been working a lot on the Back Your Stack project, and from Indeed's perspective, there seems to be some alignment with like the dependency graph of Dubstep.Cloud. So I have a call this week to like learn more, and this is my first community call, but happy to report back about the learnings there.
That was very timely. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm really interested to know if there's any feedback or questions coming from this team as well. I think it's a new project from Indeed, and definitely new in my learning as well.
I think dependencies are important. I'm sure this crowd's very interested, and we don't have anything anymore now that libraries.io is kind of dissipated. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
so I'll provide some more info as I learn it.
Yeah, so it's great that Alyssa's on. I've been chatting with Alyssa with Back Your Stack. And so Back Your Stack is a program to basically just do that, provide a way to support the stack that you're dependent on. And Alyssa, you can tell me if I'm not getting this quite right. So providing support in the stack that your organization might be dependent on. And so increasing transparency on those dependencies and in that stack is really critical, right? So we can look at health just at a project by project level, but understanding it at the ecosystem level is super challenging. And so the work that Alyssa's been doing has been trying to unpack that quite a bit. And I personally think the CHAOSS project has, as Sean and Georg both were nodding and agreeing, has a lot of interest in trying to get this done. And I don't think there's anything internal at the CHAOSS project that's building this out at the moment. I don't think anybody at Grimoire Lab's doing it, and I don't think anybody at Augur is doing it.
We have certainly aspirations, and we were working with the libraries.io data when it was still useful, but we haven't built it out, no.
And in Grimoire Lab, there was some research about the topic related with this technical debt or technical lag thing that was about when to update based on the dependencies you project depend on your ecosystem.
Okay.
But as Song has said, we have some aspiration about that, but no more than that.
But if we can achieve that aspiration, is that the right phrase, by working with another group that's already done this work and can provide nice access to the data, I'm kind of all for that in my mind.
So am I.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thank you for making
And
the
on that
connection.
meeting,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited that there's like some like just general alignment and interest in these types of questions. And if anybody's interested in coming to that call to learn more, I can ask the Indeed team if that makes sense. Otherwise, happy to report back.
So, Alyssa, is this an Indeed project?
It is. It's an Indeed project.
Okay.
I think they're building it to understand their own stack. So,
Okay.
but I really look to learn more.
And they're doing that, and they're doing that work in the open, is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you. Google Season of Docs. Next. Venu, do you want to tell us kind of what's going on there? And then Jess Currit, you can give us an update too.
Yeah, hi, so everyone. Well, I've been in my final submission of the proposal draft. So I have been preparing my proposal for the Google Sheet Now Docs, which I should be submitting probably next week. And I have been in contact with the George and Armstrong working out on my proposals. But for now, the major concern for me was to configure out the documentation platform to secure the host, basically about the community-wide handbook. So I think I shared all the details and all the comparison related stuff within the Google Doc sheet, and we have a thread going on the CHAOSS mailing list. So, but I think we could not make to some consensus. So, but George mentioned we're gonna have a kind of a demonstration stuff with the Gitbooks platform. So once I think he has already returned to the Gitbook support for the trial-based version. But once we hear back from the Gitbook, we would be able to set up the demonstration part for the CHAOSS community, and we would be able to configure out the ways how we can figure out and work for the documentation stuff. So I would be working and researching out other platforms as well while we get to hear from the Gitbooks.
Okay. Well, thanks for pushing that. I do think it's a nice improvement to have some of the documentation pulled out of GitHub. Venu, did you have updates on the Season of Doc program?
Yeah, so we haven't received much response from the Linux Foundation side, but other than that, we're planning to open the same procedure for the GSOC. We were planning to have the same procedure like for GSOC too. We'll be creating a file like GSOD ideas and GSOD interest in the governance repo. It's just basically the same procedure. Like the applicants needs to submit the proposal, they need to submit a pull request to add their name into the GSOD interest page. So I'll try to make a PR by tonight to create those files.
Okay, and when that gets merged, can you share that out to the list too, just so potential applicants know how to apply?
Matt.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any update? I'm sorry, Venu, do you have any update on timing from the Linux Foundation? Do you need me to help you, kind of push and find out timing things?
Yeah, maybe a mail to tell that would be helpful.
Okay, I can do that. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Venu.
Thanks.
So we're 1 minute over, but there's still Chaos Cast. So Georg, I'm gonna ask that I bet you added that. If you could tell us what's going on there.
Chaos Cast will be releasing the 5th episode this week, which is a really great episode because it's defining community health, and it's a really foundational episode. So I highly recommend everyone look forward to that. We also got our first money from the sponsorship, and so now I just ordered today all of the thank you articles, poker chips, postcard, and stickers, and working with Elizabeth on a process to send those out to our guests and panelists. So thank you, everyone.
Who was the guest? You didn't tell us.
But on this week's episode, there is no guest. This is a conversation with CHAOSS members.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Everybody, I'm sorry I kept you 3 minutes over. I'll take it off next week. So thanks for the very good conversation. I think we got a lot done today. So that was great.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
By the way, you said to share something that was on my desk that nobody would see. This is Admiral. He's been on my desk for quite a while now.
Wow.